Part 34. The Prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 331. Chapter 331, Too flattered, even his own son is willing to beat for his grandson. It was afternoon, and the sun was shining brightly. As soon as he walked out, he felt a wave of heat coming. The Queen was forced to follow him out, and then went back. It was not suitable to go out on such a hot day. The Queen looked up at her son suspiciously. How do you know Shenliangdi? She gestured at her belly with her hand. Huh. Xiao Jinyu's eyes dodged. Your son, I saw it. The Queen immediately understood. You went to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Xiao Jinyu nodded guiltily. The Queen said earnestly, that is the inner courtyard of the East Palace. The Prince is not in the East Palace. How can you go in as a man? Mother, it is because the Prince is not in the East Palace that the son went there, so as to prevent someone from bullying Shenliangdi when the Prince is not there. Xiao Jinyu said it with reason and confidence. The Queen knew that her son had always protected the Prince, and everything the Prince said was right. Okay, be careful next time. People's words are scary. Xiao Jinyu nodded obediently. I know, I sneaked in and no one saw me. The Queen. What if he was seen? How did this child, as a prince, learn to climb the wall? Xiao Jinyu wanted to go with them. The Queen didn't want her son to go with her at first, but after thinking about it, she decided to let him go with her so that she could see it with her own eyes and feel at ease. Otherwise, he would sneak into Xiaoxiang Pavilion again next time. The Queen took her people and went to Xiaoxiang Pavilion in a mighty manner. Qingying kept fanning the Queen with a round fan, but she still couldn't stop the sweat from dripping down. After concubine Su left, Shen Shuwei first took her pulse to make sure that the babies were all healthy. Then she started to be greedy. There were too many things she wanted to eat, but Chengzi had been supervising her daily diet and food intake. She stared at her bulging belly and said, Son, when you come out, you must give me something delicious as soon as possible, understand? Yes, I know you all heard it. Shen Shuwei stood up happily, went to the cornfield, picked one and broke it off, and neatly peeled off the outer leaves to reveal the yellow corn inside. The corn kernels are very tender and are especially delicious when steamed. Shen Shuwei broke a few more. Chengzi didn't see Shen Shuwei in the inner room, so she ran out in a hurry and saw a pink figure breaking corn in the cornfield. She ran over quickly in fear. My lady, if you want to eat corn, just tell me and let me break it. Shen Shuwei saw Chengzi coming and gave her the corn. Break a few more so that everyone can taste it. At this time in ancient times, coarse grains such as corn had not yet been introduced, and it was considered a rare food. Okay, I'll break more. Chengzi broke the corn neatly. When the Queen came, she didn't see anyone in the inner room, so she guessed that Shen Shuwei was in the backyard. She walked all the way to the backyard on the bluestone road. Xiao Jinyu followed the Queen slowly, with worry on her handsome face. It's true, she was running around even when she was sick. The Queen saw the pink figure from a distance. She found that Shen Shuwei loved to wear pink. Her little face, like a carved jade, looked really good in pink clothes. She took a few steps forward and looked at Shen Shuwei's belly with her beautiful eyes. The skirt covered it, so she couldn't see it clearly. Xiao Jinyu looked at Shen Shuwei. Mother, it's not clear enough to stand. When I saw it, Shenliangdi was lying down, and her belly was particularly bulging. The Queen simply walked towards Shen Shuwei after hearing this. Xiao Jinyu immediately chased after her. Shen Shuwei was about to go back to the house, and just turned around and saw the Queen and Xiao Jinyu. The Queen is coming to Xiaoxiang Pavilion now. Why doesn't she like to let eunuch Ren howl first? It came suddenly, catching people off guard. She was stunned for 2 seconds, then bowed. Queen, Prince Yu. The Queen hurriedly stepped forward and helped Shen Shuwei up. Get up, it's hot outside, let's go into the inner room to talk. Shen Shuwei knew that the queen was a good person, but she suddenly came to help her, which was really flattering. Okay. The three of them walked into the inner room one after another. The queen looked at Shen Shuwei's walking posture from time to time. Compared with the last time, it was more obvious, more like a pregnant person. She lowered her eyes and looked at Shen Shuwei's belly. It seemed that she could see something, and her belly was a little bulging. Shen Shuwei always felt that the queen's walking posture was wrong. Like last time, her body was crooked. Did the queen have a stiff neck again? After entering the inner room, it was immediately cooler. The queen kept staring at Shen Shuwei's belly. She couldn't help but want to do something, but she was afraid of being abrupt and scaring Shen Shuwei. Shen Shuwei's forehead was sweating. She felt that something was wrong with the queen today. Could something have happened? She reminded, "Queen, please take a seat." The queen also found that she looked very abrupt standing there. She stepped forward and took Shen Shuwei's hand and led her to the couch. "You sit too." Shen Shuwei glanced at her hand held by the queen, feeling guilty. "Queen, what does this mean?" Even Xiao Jinyu on the side couldn't stand it. "Mother, what are you doing?" "You kid, what do you know?" The queen glared at her son, turned her head and smiled at Shen Shuwei. "Shen Liangdi, do you feel uncomfortable?" Shen Shuwei shook her head. "I'm fine." "Shen Liangdi, tell me what's wrong with you." Xiao Jinyu was so anxious that he almost pointed at Shen Shuwei's stomach and shouted, "After all this, you still want to hide your condition?" Shen Shuwei looked at Xiao Jinyu with a confused expression. "Are you more aware of your physical condition than I am? Are you better than Mr. Liu?" The queen held Shen Shuwei's hand tightly, resisting the urge to confirm it herself. "Shen Liangdi, don't pay attention to him, he doesn't understand anything." Xiao Jinyu paced back and forth anxiously. Shen Shuwei felt something was wrong in the atmosphere. The queen looked kind and gentle, while Xiao Jinyu, on the contrary, was extremely anxious. "I will make you a cup of tea for the queen." As he spoke, he was about to stand up and escape from this strange atmosphere. "Little master, come here," slave Chengzi said and went to make tea. Shen Chu stood up slightly and had to sit down again. The queen stared at Shen Shuwei's belly. She could clearly see the way she stood and sat down just now. It looked like a belly that was about 4 months pregnant. Because Shen Chu was so petite, her pregnancy belly was not that obvious. Chengzi brought 3 cups of hot tea and placed them in front of the queen, Shen Shuwei and Xiao Jinyu respectively, then turned around to get fresh fruits. After a while, an exquisite and delicious fruit platter was served. Xiao Jinyu was really anxious and asked directly, "Shen Liangdi, please stop hiding it. Your belly is much bigger than usual. You must be sick. You need to let the imperial doctor come and take a look." As soon as he finished speaking, the queen gave him a shudder. "Why are you sick? If you can't speak, don't say anything." Xiao Jinyu covered his forehead and felt extremely aggrieved. It was the first time that his mother had attacked him viciously. "Mother, I am worried about Shen Liangdi. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Iyun Si. Chapter 332. Shen Shuwei just put her hand into the fruit plate when she heard this. She looked at the lychee and hesitated whether to eat a bite of lychee first or answer Xiao Jinyu's question first. Who can resist the smile of a concubine in the red dust? So, Shen Shuwei picked up a neatly peeled fruit and stuffed it into her mouth with moist flesh. It was fresh and juicy and tasted great. "Thank you, Prince Yu, for your concern. I'm fine." The queen took Shen Shuwei's hand again, looked at Shen Shuwei expectantly, and asked in the most gentle voice, "Shen Liangdi, tell me honestly, are you pregnant?" Shen Shuwei just stuffed the lychee into her mouth, and she couldn't swallow it or spit it out. She just held it in her mouth and looked at the queen. How did the queen know that she was pregnant? She subconsciously glanced at her belly, and it didn't seem obvious. The queen saw Shen Shui's frightened look and felt very guilty. Look, she scared the child so much that he didn't dare to speak. Yes, there are intrigues in the palace, and any means can be used to win favor. She also understood why Shen Shui didn't tell anyone about her pregnancy, which was a wise move. If it were another woman, she would have already spread the news of her pregnancy everywhere to gain favor. She whispered softly, "Shen Liangdi, don't be afraid." Shen Shui shook her head. She was not afraid, she was just confused. How did she know all of a sudden? She was not prepared at all. The queen seemed to see what Shen Shui was thinking. She explained, "I am an experienced person. The way you walk is like a pregnant woman. You are also pregnant. How could you not tell me about such a big thing as pregnancy? Pregnant women are very delicate and will have all kinds of discomfort in the early stage. It's too unfair for you to bear it alone." Shen Shui said, "I didn't tell you, but you saw it with your sharp eyes." When Xiao Jinyu heard that she was pregnant, she was stunned at first, but after she reacted, she retorted, "Mother, did you see it wrong? The prince has been gone for so long, how could Shen Liangdi be pregnant? If you say that, Shen Liangdi will be misunderstood." As expected, Xiao Jinyu was given another slap by the queen. "I told you to study more, but you insisted on making up the numbers." Xiao Jinyu was really wrong today. The mother who usually couldn't bear to scold or beat him actually killed him twice. "Mother, what did I say wrong?" Xiao Jinyu said. "How could he make up the numbers?" The queen pointed at Shen Liangdi's belly and explained, "Look at Shen Liangdi's belly, how many months has it been?" The queen paused, turned her head and looked at Shen Shui. Her voice immediately became very gentle, "Shen Liangdi, how many months has it been?" Shen Shui wanted to hide it but couldn't, so she told the truth, "A little more than 4 months." The queen said to her son again, "Did you hear that? It's been 4 months. How long has your brother been gone?" Xiao Jinyu answered without thinking, 3 months and 20 days. More than 4 months. The queen looked at Shen Shui's belly again, her excitement was beyond words. She couldn't close her mouth with joy. After 10 months of pregnancy, she can see her grandson in 6 months. Xiao Jinyu still couldn't believe it. "Mother, is Shen Liangdi really pregnant?" The queen raised her chin, "Of course, I'm really going to be the queen grandmother this time." She sighed, "It feels different to have a grandson." Xiao Jinyu confirmed that Shen Liangdi was pregnant, and was also very excited. "Then I will be the emperor's uncle, right?" The queen said happily, "Of course, dear uncle." Xiao Jinyu spoke actively, "When the baby is born, I will take him to play." Shen Shui peeled a lychee and stuffed it into her mouth while watching the queen and Xiao Jinyu discuss how to play with her son, whether to play with rattles or wooden horses first, or catch butterflies. She secretly touched her belly, "Son, you will have something to play after you come out." Shen Shui was eating happily, but she heard the queen and Xiao Jinyu arguing. The queen said, "When my grandson is born, I will hold him in my arms and walk around the imperial garden every day." Xiao Jinyu said, "I can also hold the baby and ride a horse." The queen said, "How old is the baby? How can he ride a horse?" Xiao Jinyu said righteously, "Why can't he ride a horse? I will protect the baby." The queen said seriously, "The baby is still young and can't ride a horse. If you don't listen, you are not allowed to hold the baby." Xiao Jinyu had no choice but to take a step forward. "Then I will take the baby to ride a wooden horse, okay?" Shen Shui took a bite of the lychee, and seeing this situation, she secretly touched her belly, and said, "Son, you are about to become a national treasure." The queen looked at Shen Shui again and asked in a gentle voice, "Shen Liangdi, are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Shen Shui shook her head, "I'm not feeling uncomfortable anywhere." The queen said, "That's good. When I was pregnant, I felt uncomfortable in various ways. I was afraid that you would feel the same as me." Shen Shuwei puffed her cheeks and said, "I'm fine. I was sleepy and vomited a little at the beginning, but I'm fine now." The queen felt the same way. It's like this when you're pregnant at the beginning. If it's serious, you can't eat, and you often feel nauseous and want to vomit. That's why it's very hard for women to be pregnant. Although Xiao Jinyu couldn't feel the same way, he could imagine that it would be uncomfortable to have such a big belly. It's a pity that the prince is not here. The queen paused after hearing this. The prince had been leading the army for some time. When a woman is pregnant, she is more delicate in all aspects, so she still hopes that a man will be by her side. When she was pregnant for the first time, she felt uncomfortable in various ways, vomited and couldn't eat. Although the dog emperor had 3,000 beauties in the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, he would always take time to accompany her no matter how busy he was, and let people cook some meals that suit her taste. Thinking this way, she felt that the dog emperor was a good person. However, when she thought about how the dog emperor had been complaining about this and that recently, the beautiful memories just now shrank back into the depths of her memory. The dog emperor is really a piece of shit. I heard from the emperor that he had won a great victory on the front line, and he should be back soon. Shen Shuwei nodded. Xiao Jinyan also mentioned in the letter that he would be back this month if nothing unexpected happened. I will tell the emperor that you are pregnant and let him let you out. After the queen finished speaking, she stood up and walked out. Shen Shuwei didn't even have time to react. She looked at the queen who hurried out. No way, did she tell the emperor right away? Xiao Jinyu also comforted her, "Sister-in-law, don't worry. My father will definitely let you out when he finds out that you are pregnant." When no one was around, Xiao Jinyu would call Shen Shuwei sister-in-law. Shen Shuwei said that she didn't want to go out. It was good to live here. It was very cool in summer. After a while, the queen came back. Xiao Jinyu asked in confusion, "Mother, why are you back again?" The queen sat back next to Shen Shuwei and said after careful consideration, "I think it's not a good idea to tell the emperor now. It was the emperor who wanted to lock you up here. Although he misunderstood that it was difficult for you to get pregnant, he insisted on his own opinion." Good afternoon, my dears. I updated 4 chapters with 8,000 words yesterday. Next time, I will mark the chapters with more votes to prevent my dears from thinking that I didn't update more. The number of votes yesterday was a little less. Thank you for your monthly votes and recommendation votes. Please support me with monthly votes and recommendation votes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Iyun Si. Chapter 333. Shen Chu nodded slightly in agreement. If the emperor knows, it means he knows everything. It will definitely be very troublesome. She was also afraid that they would disturb her quiet life. She's fine now. The queen said angrily, "The emperor has his own way. When the time comes, we will not allow the emperor to see the baby or hold the baby. Let him regret it. No, there is no room for regret." He hugged her left and right, but he still disliked her every day, always reminding her that she was not young. What women hate most is the mention of age, and he keeps talking about it every day. She had found a way to make the dog emperor regret it. Let him be self-righteous and arrogant day by day. She said at the beginning that Shen Liangdi did not make any big mistakes and that the dog emperor had his own way. If you don't let him suffer, you will be sorry for what he did. Shen Shuwei was shocked. She secretly gave a thumbs up. The queen is really too strong. She dares to do things that others dare not do and say things that others dare not say. Concubine Su, Your ideas can be realized. At this time, Chengzi brought the steamed corn. The queen saw corn for the first time. She looked at it curiously for a while and asked Shen Shuwei, "What is this? Why haven't I seen it before?" "Queen, this is corn, please try it." Shen Shuwei picked up a piece of corn and handed it to the queen. After cooling, it was not hot. The queen took the corn from her hand with novelty. Xiao Jinyu happened to be a little hungry at this moment. He saw something to eat but he had never eaten before, so of course he wanted to try it. "Shen Liangdi, I want it too." Shen Shuwei took one in each hand and handed one to Xiao Jinyu. She took the corn and took a bite. It was tender, juicy and a little sweet. If the journey wasn't too far, she would have wanted to give some to Xiao Jinyan to try. The queen watched Shen Shuwei chew the entire length, thinking that if there were no outsiders, she could just chew it, so she didn't hesitate to chew it with her mouth. Xiao Jinyu was shocked when he saw this scene. The queen mother, who had always been dignified and gentle, actually used chewing food. He took a bite of the corn and found that it tasted good. Shen Shuwei thought that the little rabbit had not been released yet, so the queen should have a way to let the little rabbit out. "Empress, the little rabbit in Xiaoxiang Pavilion was captured by the imperial guards 2 days ago. Can you let the imperial guards release him?" The queen agreed readily upon hearing this. What's so difficult about this? She turned around and told Eunuch Ren, "Go and have a look in the prison and ask someone to let the little rabbit out." Here Eunuch Ren took the order and exited. When Shen Shuwei saw this, he breathed a sigh of relief. The little rabbit could finally come back. The queen sat with Xiao Jinyu for a while before leaving. Shen Shuwei continued to eat the fruit platter. After a while, the good news of spring came. "My lord, the little rabbit is back." Shen Shuwei raised his head in surprise when he heard this. "So fast? Where is the person?" Then, the little rabbit came in from the outside and stayed in the prison for 3 days, very embarrassed. Little rabbit was a little embarrassed. "Little master, this slave didn't complete the task." Shen Shuwei said nonchalantly, "It's okay, you go down and wash up, and then we'll talk after you have a full meal." "Thank you, little master." Little rabbit turned around and exited. At night, Shen Shuwei took out a pen and paper and wrote a letter to Xiao Jinyan. By the time Xiao Jinyan receives the letter, he is probably on his way back. In addition to the usual greetings, Shen Shuwei also told Xiao Jinyan that the queen and king knew that she was pregnant, and informed Xiao Jinyan of the queen's tough thoughts. Each paragraph is followed by a corresponding expression. For example, in the queen's thoughts, she drew a thumbs up after her words, and then she drew a snicker. After writing the letter, Shen Shuwei folded it and put it in an envelope, then placed it on the bedside, and then fell asleep peacefully. Early the next morning, Shen Shuwei asked Qin Xiao to send someone to deliver the letter. When concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan arrived, Shen Shuwei was eating lotus seeds, and the lotus seeds from Binglian were not ripe because they were fed by Lingquan water. As soon as they finished eating, the two of them walked in one after the other. As soon as Tao Liangyuan walked in, she couldn't wait to ask, "Shen Liangdi, are you really pregnant with twins?" On the way here, concubine Su secretly told Tao Liangyuan that Shen Shuwei had 2 babies in her belly, and she was surprised and happy. Shen Shu nodded slightly. "Yes, there are 2 babies. 2 babies. There is no precedent for twins in the royal family." Tao Liangyuan stared at Shen Shuwei's belly. Although her family has been in business for generations, this matter is not a secret and many people know it. After hearing this, concubine Su thought for a while and suddenly laughed out loud. "Then the emperor will go crazy with joy when he finds out." Tao Liangyuan laughed twice. "That's natural. It is the first time for twins to appear in the royal family, and they are the eldest sons of the prince. The emperor is more than happy. Shen Liangdi is more valuable than the mother." Concubine Su was so excited. "I have 2 sons, the eldest son and the second son. It took others several years, but Shenliangdi had them all at once. Your Highness is really amazing. Tao Liangyuan covered her mouth and snickered, you're right, Your Highness Shenliangdi is very powerful. Shen Chuwei looked at the two of them, saying son on the left and son on the right, and she interrupted, what if it's a daughter? Concubine Su said bot, 3 times, and said righteously, this baby must be a son, and a daughter can be born next time. Tao Liangyuan also nodded in agreement, what Concubine Su said makes sense. A son is the best for the first child. It not only attracts attention, but also shuts up those people. Otherwise, if you give birth to a daughter, they will criticize you again. So what if I can give birth? Isn't it just a daughter? Concubine Su nodded vigorously, that's what I mean. My mother also said that if a woman wants to maintain her status, it is more important to have a son. It doesn't matter if a daughter is born later. Shen Chuwei was almost brainwashed by the two people in front of her. She felt that giving birth to a son or a daughter was the same, and that they would all be reborn by themselves anyway. If you're lucky, maybe it's a twin brother and a girl. Tao Liangyuan opened her eyes wide, dragon and phoenix? Real or fake? Concubine Su believed it to be true, it must be true. Shen Liangdi would never lie to us. Concubine Su said, if it's a dragon and a phoenix, the emperor will be so happy that he can't sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. Shen Chuwei looked surprised, so exaggerated. Tao Liangyuan said, Concubine Su is not exaggerating. The twins of dragon and phoenix can be said to be a good omen from heaven, which is a rare occurrence in 100 years. Shen Chuwei looked at the two people who were extremely serious and could only break their illusions. I just said casually, the chance of having twins is very slim, it's like winning the first prize. Concubine Su didn't take it seriously, then I hope the first prize will fall on your head. Shen Chuwei thought of the corn still steaming in the pot, the corn I planted is ripe, you can try it. Concubine Su became interested when she heard this, corn? What kind of food is it? Tao Liangyuan also looked at Shen Chuwei with curiosity. Shen Chu smiled mysteriously and ordered, Chengzi, bring up the corn. After a while, Chengzi brought the corn up and cooled it with cold water. It was no longer hot. Concubine Su picked up a piece of corn. She was particularly curious because she had never seen it before. It was yellow and looked very appetizing. Is this corn? Shen Chuwei had already started eating. She puffed out her cheeks and nodded, well, this is a more common kind of corn. This is the first time I've seen corn. Tao Liangyuan picked up one and took a small bite. It's sweet and delicious. Concubine Su nodded in agreement after eating, it tastes good. Tao Liangyuan said while munching the corn, if this corn is sold, it will definitely make a lot of money. Concubine Su joked, it's true that you are in business. You can think of ways to make money even if you eat corn. Tao Liangyuan smiled sheepishly, it's the result of hearing and seeing since childhood. Shen Chu took a bite of corn and said, I think this is a good idea. Tao Liangyuan became interested, does Shen Liangdi want to make this money? Shen Chu said slightly, I'm too lazy to care about that. I can give you seeds and tell you how to plant them. When the corn matures, it can also be made into seeds, so that the corn seeds will not break. Tao Liangyuan was excited, it's simple. Let's cooperate and give you dividends every year. Shen Chuwei said, you don't need to pay dividends. Think of these corn seeds as a gift from me. She still remembers the 10,000 taels of silver Tao Liangyuan gave her. She doesn't know how much corn she has to buy. After eating the corn, Shen Chuwei entered the back room. In fact, he removed the common yellow corn seeds from the space. She placed 5 pounds of corn seeds on the table. There are 5 kilograms of corn seeds here. You can plant them first. If they sell well, I will also have blood waxy corn seeds and sweet waxy corn seeds. But I have planted both of them. You will be able to eat them in a few days. Then you can try them. Taste. A full 5 kilograms of corn seeds can be planted on more than an acre of land. Tao Liangyuan opened the bag and took a look inside. The seeds were red. She raised her head and looked at Shen Shuwei in confusion. Why don't these seeds look like corn? Shen Shuwei explained, it is a coating, which can effectively prevent and control underground pests and some diseases. The red color is actually a new compound seed coating product made of pesticides, fungicides, compound fertilizers, trace elements, plant growth regulators, etc. When Tao Liangyuan left, she took 5 kilograms of corn seeds with her. That night, concubine Su had been lying on the windowsill, shaking the fan in her hand, waiting for the man in black to arrive. After narrowly escaping from the plague, she was no longer afraid of the men in black. She felt that the men in black did not look like bad people. The man in black had promised that before she was dead, he pulled off the scarf to show her face. She is still more curious about what the man in black looks like. As a result, after waiting for an hour, the man in black was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps after waiting for a long time, concubine Su became a little impatient. She looked around in the dark night. Where is the person? Why hasn't he come yet? Concubine Su was furious. He always appears unexpectedly when he is not expected. Now he is waiting for him and he has stopped coming. You've already promised others, how can you let them go? There is no professional ethics at all, no manliness at all. What you say does not mean what you say. Concubine Su's words were all heard by the man in black on the roof. At this time, the man in black was sitting on the red glazed tiles, listening to concubine Su's complaints, but he remained seated without moving. After the complaints calmed down, the man in black thought that concubine Su said she was tired, so he went to rest. As soon as a thought came to my mind, I heard concubine Su roaring in dissatisfaction. Are you still a man? Man in black. Little master, what are you doing? Nothing, go to sleep. At this time, the lights in the room went out. The man in black sat for a while, then got up and used Qinggong to go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. At this time, Xiaoxiang Pavilion was even quieter than Yuxiang Hall. The man in black jumped down from the roof and stood by the window. There was only one candle lit in the room, but it was not bright. The people in the room have long fallen asleep. The man in black has not been idle these days. He checked Shen Shuwei's mother's home, the Shen Shangshu mansion, and learned that Shen Shuwei was born to a concubine. Because Shen Shuwei's mother made a mistake, she sent the mother and daughter to the countryside. She was taken back to the mansion at the age of 14, and became the prince's concubine at the age of 15. All this has nothing to do with Xiaju. Before, he thought that Shen Shuwei might just happen to look similar to Xiaju. Later, he saw with his own eyes that a wild cat scratched concubine Shui, and things became not so simple. Another possibility is that Shen Shuwei also has some ability to communicate with animals. He has been looking for Xiaju for 5 years, but there is no news at all. It's as if he disappeared from this world. The man in black stood outside the window for a long time before leaving quietly. The morning sun sprinkled on the windowsill, and Fuleiu faced the sun, and a small yellow flower bloomed from the gap in the middle. Fuleiu is a kind of succulent, commonly known as bud flower. Shen Shuwei rarely gets up early. When Chengzi came in, she was surprised to find Shen Shuwei dressed up. She came in with a wash basin and put it on the shelf. My lady, why don't you sleep a little longer? I can't sleep. Shen Shuwei came to the shelf and started to wash. After Shen Shuwei finished washing, she sat in front of the dressing table and Chengzi did her makeup. Chengzi was skillful and knew Shen Shuwei's preferences. She tied up her hair and did it with ease. It's rare for my lady to get up so early. Today, I made steamed buns and pancakes. When Shen Shuwei heard steamed buns, She thought of zongzi, egg yolk, and meat zongzi, her favorite. I want to eat zongzi. Changzi was holding a peach blossom pearl in her hand and was about to wear it. She replied, "My lady, I have made steamed buns. I can't digest too much glutinous rice. Tomorrow is the Dragon Boat Festival. Why can't I eat a few zongzi to satisfy my craving?" Shen Shuwei immediately added, "and mung bean cakes, which are indispensable for the Dragon Boat Festival. My lady, can I make zongzi tomorrow? I will eat one less zongzi today and more zongzi. I will eat zongzi instead of zongzi tomorrow on the Dragon Boat Festival." "Changzi, my lady, do you believe what you said?" Shen Shuwei was powerless to refute. She sighed, "I miss your highness." "Changzi. Here it comes again." On the dining table, Shen Shuwei saw Shaimai and was so greedy that she ate one after another. Until she took the last bite on the plate, Changzi said faintly, "My lady, did you eat less?" Shen Shuwei said confidently, "The size you made this time is too small, it's not that I eat too much." Changzi. After Shen Shuwei finished her breakfast, she looked at Changzi who was packing clothes, and she touched her belly. "Changzi, the baby wants to eat zongzi." Changzi looked at Shen Shuwei's belly. The lady really wanted to eat, even brought out the baby. What can she say? Of course it's wrapped zongzi. After an hour, Shen Shuwei got the egg yolk and meat zongzi as she wished, and patted her belly with satisfaction. It's true that a mother is honored by her son. Changzi. Xuying rushed to the military camp day and night with the letter. When Xiao Jinyan saw Xuying, he knew that Xiaju had written to him again. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 334. At this time, Xiao Jinyan had grown stubble because he had been leading troops in the battlefield for several days, but it did not affect his appearance at all. He took the letter from Xuying and opened it neatly. Looking at the familiar address, "Dear Highness," there would be a sentence below, "Dear Husband." He finally realized that seeing the words is like seeing the person. Seeing the words, he wanted to return to Beijing as soon as possible to reunite with her. The Queen Mother already knew that Xiaoju was pregnant. From Xiaoju's tone, it can be known that the Queen Mother is very happy. Of course, the Queen Mother has wanted to hold her grandson for a long time. Now that she has a grandson, how can she not be happy? When he saw the last sentence, he was stunned. The Queen Mother did not plan to tell the father now, hoping that the father would regret it. Xiao Jinyan slightly raised the corners of his lips, which was exactly what he wanted. It was time to let the father know how wrong he was at the beginning. However, it was more logical for the Queen Mother to do this, and the father could not do anything to the Queen Mother. He suddenly looked forward to the birth of his son. His father wanted to hold him but couldn't, and he wanted to see the scene that his mother didn't let him see. Knowing that his mother was protecting Shen Shuwei, Xiao Jinyan felt relieved. Otherwise, he would not be able to feel at ease day and night. When he saw the three words twins, he was stunned for a long time. Afraid that he had read it wrong, he read it carefully and seriously several times before confirming that Xiaju was pregnant with twins, 2 babies in one pregnancy. Xiao Jinyan was extremely excited. He actually had 2 children at once. He paced back and forth, lowered his head and stared at the sentence again and again. "Jinyan, sit down, I'm going to tell you something next, don't get too excited. I have 2 babies in my belly, twins. Surprise. Actually, I want to wait until you come back to tell you. The ancients said that people are refreshed when they encounter happy events, and they will definitely get twice the result with half the effort on the battlefield." Xiao Jinyan felt that since he met Xiaju, he was really surprised. Even now, he has not recovered from the joy of being a father for the first time. Xuying took out a sachet and a white jade bottle from her bosom and presented them with both hands. "Master, this is what Shen Liangdi gave you." Xiao Jinyan turned his head to look at the things in Xu Ying's hand, took them with curiosity, and looked at them in front of his eyes. All the things Xiaju gave him last time came in handy. Especially the self-heating rice. Last time, the soldiers were hiding near the enemy and could not make a fire. They relied on self-heating rice to survive those 2 days. Because of this, they were not discovered by the enemy and the raid was successful. The sachet can be used to refresh. As for the things in the white jade bottle, it is anesthetic. Xiao Jinyan laughed softly. She also prepared anesthetic for herself. Do you really think he is weak? Xiao Jinyan also wrote back to Shen Shuwei. When Shen Shuwei received the letter, it was already several days later. When she woke up and received Xiao Jinyan's letter, she immediately sobered up. She couldn't wait to open the letter. The letter was still very short and still very wordy. She was used to it. He said that when she received the letter, he was already on the way. Shen Shuwei, like last time, folded the letter and put it together with the other 2 letters. At this time, a familiar male voice came from outside the window, "Sister-in-law, sister-in-law." Shen Shuwei turned her head and looked out the window, and saw Xiao Jinyu with a handsome face that looked like Xiao Jinyan. Who else could it be except the idiot Xiao Jinyu? Under the scorching sun, sweating profusely, his tender cheeks were stained with a touch of red. Shen Shuwei asked in confusion, "Why are you here?" "I came to see my sister-in-law." Xiao Jinyu raised his hand hidden under the 2 bags of food, and his peach blossom eyes curved. "I didn't come empty-handed." Shen Shuwei saw the 2 bags of food and was so greedy, "You are getting better and better." Then he took the 2 bags with a smile, and couldn't wait to open them, and found that there were roast duck meat patties inside, which he hadn't eaten for half a month. She picked up a piece of meat pie and took a bite. Xiao Jinyu took out a folding fan and fanned himself. He was so hot after running all the way. Seeing Shen Shuwei eating happily, he took out something from his arms and showed it to Shen Shuwei like a treasure. "Sister-in-law, what do you think I bought for the baby?" Shen Shuwei took the time to look up at Xiao Jinyan, and saw that he had a brand new rattle in his hand, which was small and exquisite, very suitable for babies of a few months old to play with. She freed one hand to hold the rattle. "Buy a rattle so early?" Xiao Jinyu looked proud. "I saw it and bought it." "You can shake it for the baby when you have nothing to do." Shen Shuwei, "Okay, I'll shake it for the baby when I have nothing to do." "Sister-in-law, what kind of wooden horse do you think the baby likes? Big or small? Ebony or rosewood?" Xiao Jinyu pondered for a long time, and then said, "How about Huanghuali?" Shen Shuwei touched her belly. The baby was still in her belly for 5 months. She looked up at Xiao Jinyu, who was still worried and entangled. "Prince Yu, it's still early." "It's not early. It takes a long time to make a wooden horse." "Sister-in-law, what kind of wood do you think is good?" Xiao Jinyu couldn't wait to make the wooden horse now. Seeing Xiao Jinyu so enthusiastic, Shen Shuwei didn't want to discourage him, so she simply chose one, Huanghuali. Xiao Jinyu's eyes lit up. "I also think Huanghuali is good, then Huanghuali." After the final decision, Xiao Jinyu couldn't wait to slip back and start choosing a good Huanghuali. Miss Han saw Xiao Jinyu busy these days, and now she saw him carrying a piece of wood back again. "What are you doing?" When Xiao Jinyu saw Miss Han coming out, he smiled and explained, "I plan to make a wooden horse." Miss Han's eyes flashed with doubt. "Why do you want to make a wooden horse?" Xiao Jinyu's peach blossom eyes curved, and her voice was full of pride. "Make a wooden horse for my future nephew." Miss Han was stunned when she heard it. Seeing Xiao Jinyu sweating profusely and his forehead covered with sweat, she frowned and took out a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. "There is no need to do it now. It's so hot, can't you wait until it cools down?" "I'm free now, right? It'll look good if I make it early," Xiao Jinyu said and started to measure the size. Miss Han paused when she wiped. "Look at your anxious look. If you don't know, you would think you are making a wooden horse for your son. Xiao Jinyu smiled and said, nephew is almost the same as son. I'm just waiting to be the emperor's uncle. Miss Han took back her hand, lowered her eyes and looked at Xiao Jinyu, who was still busy with his head down. Her face looked a little bad. Asterisk. After the East Palace regained its former spirit, various news began to spread. Chang Liangyuan asked, are you serious? Does the queen really go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion often? It's true, my lady. She has been going there more frequently recently. The queen should be in Xiaoxiang Pavilion now, Huaixiang said. Chang Liangyuan pondered for a moment, go and take a look. At this time, Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Shen Shuwei had just woken up from her nap and heard Chengzi say that the queen was here. Before she could ask, the bright red phoenix robe appeared in front of her. She was about to step forward to greet her, but was stopped by the queen. You are pregnant now, so you should move slowly. These etiquettes are waived. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 335. In front of the queen, of course, one must listen to the queen. Shen Shuwei thought that she should be a good and obedient child. If she was not allowed to greet, then she would not greet. I will listen to the queen. The queen looked at her belly, which was a little bigger than before. She took Shen Shuwei's hand and sat back on the couch. Come, sit down and talk. As soon as Shen Shuwei sat down, she smelled the fragrance. Every time the queen came, she would give her food, all kinds of soup. When she smelled the fragrance, she saw Qingying holding a food box in her hand. Needless to say, this time was no exception. The queen pointed to the food box in Qingying's hand and said softly, this is the black chicken soup that I asked the small kitchen to stew. You try it. Qingying also cooperated to open the food box, took out the chicken soup inside and put it in front of Shen Shuwei. The queen was afraid that Shen Shuwei would not be used to the soup stewed by others, so she asked Chengzi to stew the soup according to what Chengzi said. Because the queen knew that pregnant people were more picky than usual, and sometimes greedy. If they didn't suit their appetite, they didn't want to eat at all. Qingying opened the lid, and the rich smell of chicken soup hit her face. Shen Shuwei woke up from a nap and was a little hungry. She became even hungrier when she smelled the fragrance. She picked up the white porcelain spoon and couldn't wait to scoop a spoonful of chicken soup into her mouth. The taste was a little light, but the lighter the chicken soup, the more fragrant it was. The queen's eyebrows and eyes were filled with a gentle smile. When she saw Shen Shuwei eating, she would think of her own pregnancy. How does it taste? Is it to your taste? It's delicious. Shen Shuwei drank several mouthfuls of chicken soup, then picked up the chicken leg and took a bite. Eunuch Ren bowed and came in to report, Queen, Chang Liangyuan is here. Shen Shuwei raised her head when she heard the words, and her little hand came down from the table, pulling the hem of her skirt to cover her pregnant belly, not wanting Chang Liangyuan to see that she was pregnant. After the last fake pregnancy, the queen found that Lan'er, who had always been gentle and generous, was also like those women in the palace, who would use tricks and was scheming. She was a little disappointed. Why is she here? I don't know, said Eunuch Ren. At this time, Chang Liangyuan walked in with elegant steps. She knew that the queen was in Xiaoxiang Pavilion when she saw Eunuch Ren outside. Xiaoxiang Pavilion was even more bankrupt than Xiun Pavilion. How could a queen come to such a place? Chang Liangyuan looked at the two people on the couch and saw Shen Shuwei drinking chicken soup. The queen was sitting on the right. She felt that the scene was a little warm. She was confined for so long. I don't know what tricks she played to make her aunt care about her so much. Chang Liangyuan suppressed her dissatisfaction and bowed, Aunt. Chang Liangyuan deliberately called her aunt, first to remind the queen that she was her niece, and second to let Shen Shuwei know that she and the queen were blood relatives, and no matter how you use tricks, you can't change it. Then he bowed to Shen Shuwei again, Shen Liangdi. Shen Shuwei only looked up at Chang Liangyuan. The hints in Chang Liangyuan's words did not affect her drinking chicken soup and eating chicken legs at all. The queen looked at Chang Liangyuan for a few times. After not seeing her for a few days, she found that she had lost a lot of weight. After all, she was her own niece, so she couldn't help but feel distressed. Chang Liangyuan, how are you these days? Chang Liangyuan said in a gentle voice, and, Lanner hasn't seen you for a few days and misses you very much. When I learned that you came to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, Lanner hurried over. It just so happens that I haven't seen Shen Liangdi for a few days, so I came to see her by the way. The queen said, sit down and talk. Thank you, and Chang Liangyuan sat down on the chair with her skirt lifted. Her posture was dignified and elegant, and she did not lose her demeanor. It can be said that it formed a sharp contrast with Shen Shuwei, who sat cross-legged, rolled up her sleeves, and ate in an unrefined manner. However, Chang Liangyuan was dignified and elegant, but she only admired herself because no one was looking at her. The queen looked at Shen Shuwei and saw that she was eating deliciously. The corners of her lips unconsciously showed a gentle smile. Next time, she would stew some ginseng soup. Look at how thin this child is. Shen Shuwei drank soup and ate chicken legs, and the spoon inevitably made a sound when it hit the soup bowl. Chang Liangyuan heard it, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and said, Shen Liangdi, you are really careless. The implication is that there are no rules and no manners. Shen Shuwei just ate a chicken leg, and when she heard it, she looked up at Chang Liangyuan, thank you for the compliment. The queen couldn't help laughing when she heard it, Shen Liangdi eats so deliciously, not everyone can do this. Chang Liangyuan. Obviously she is unruly and uneducated, but the aunt actually praised Shen Liangdi. Who drinks soup and eats chicken legs like her, it's not elegant. It's true that no one can do it like Shen Liangdi, so I can't sit here. You have different personalities, so naturally you can't do it like Shen Liangdi. The queen looked at Shen Shuwei, the soup had already been finished, the chicken leg had been eaten, and only a bone was left. She wiped her mouth with satisfaction with a handkerchief. Shen Liangdi has a good appetite. A good appetite means good health, which is conducive to giving birth. Chang Liangyuan tightly grasped the handkerchief in her hand, looking at her aunt who always loved her, her eyes were all on Shen Liangdi. She obviously had nothing, how could her aunt be bewitched by Shen Liangdi like Xiao Jinyan? Chang Liangyuan saw the chicken soup and pretended to be surprised and said, isn't Shen Liangdi under house arrest? How come there is chicken soup? If the emperor knew about it, I'm afraid she would be punished again. If she was punished by the emperor to be under house arrest, the food would be greatly reduced, and she couldn't even taste meat, let alone such a nourishing black chicken soup. It was obvious that Shen Liangdi got it secretly. The queen would definitely be angry if she knew, and the emperor would definitely punish her severely if he knew. The queen snorted, this is what I sent to Shen Liangdi to nourish her body. What if the emperor knows about it? Let's see what he can do to me. What a spoiled dog emperor. The queen knew it clearly. Even if she took Shen Shuwei out now, she was not afraid of the dog emperor. If the dog emperor knew that Shen Shuwei already had a grandson, he would be so happy. Shen Shuwei secretly gave a thumbs up. The queen is worthy of being the queen. She is so tough. Only the queen dared to challenge the emperor. Only the queen dared to prevent the emperor from seeing her grandson, although the grandson has not been born yet. Chang Liangyuan looked unhappy when she heard this. Her aunt actually sent black chicken soup to Shen Shuwei to nourish her body? What virtue did Shen Shuwei have? The queen sat for a while and then left. Chang Liangyuan got up to see the queen off and ease the relationship by the way. Aunt, my mother sent me some good tea. Would you like to taste it? At this time, the queen's attention was all on her grandson. She thought she could make some small clothes for him and asked the Imperial Bureau to make a longevity lock. Chang Liangyuan waited for a long time, but the queen did not respond. She raised her voice and called, "Aunt." The queen looked at Chang Liangyuan and said, "I have something to do. I will go back first." Before Chang Liangyuan could speak, the queen left, feeling angry and annoyed. On the way back to Fenji Palace, the queen saw Yun Xianbei playing with Yin'er in the imperial garden under the scorching sun. This time, the queen did not take a detour, but walked over with her head held high. "Good afternoon, my dears. The prince is now ranked 14th on the monthly ticket list. My dears, try your best to vote and strive to get into the top 10. If you get into the top 10, there will be a burst of updates. Please vote for the monthly ticket and the recommended ticket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading." Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 336. The prince favored Shen Liangdi alone and was unwilling to share the spoils equally, resulting in no offspring for more than a year, which made the emperor furious. Shen Liangdi was imprisoned in the cold palace, but the prince still had no offspring. This matter has long been a topic of conversation in the harem. When concubine Yun learned that the queen had gone to the East Palace, she deliberately waited on the road that must be passed, and deliberately provoked the queen by using Yin'er. The queen has been occupying the emperor these days, and it is difficult for her to see him. Seeing the queen coming from a distance, concubine Yun took Yin'er and walked over, and went forward to greet, "Queen." Yin'er bowed and saluted, and learned it in a very good way. Yin'er pays respects to the queen. Yin'er is already 3.5 years old, and his pronunciation is much clearer than last year. His voice is babyish, which is quite likable. Concubine Yun looked at her grandson with joy in her eyes. "Queen, do you think Yin'er is very smart? He is only 3.5 years old, but he is very good at bowing and saluting. However, all the princes in the future will definitely be as smart as the crown prince." The words were a reminder that the crown prince had no offspring, which was a real failure. In the past, the queen would definitely be jealous of Yun Xianbei. Now, her grandson will be born soon, it's just a matter of time. Her grandson is the smartest and cutest. As for Yun Xianbei's affectation, the queen didn't take it seriously at all. Concubine Yun really speaks the truth. How excellent is the crown prince! The children born are naturally excellent. Yin'er still needs to work hard, otherwise he will be caught up by his younger brother, and it will not be good. Concubine Yun, what do you think? When facing Yun Xianbei, the queen always speaks impolitely. When concubine Yun shows off, she will confront her. Concubine Yun looked unhappy. "What are you talking about? Yin is already 3.5 years old, and the prince still has no children. He has to wait for a few more years." She snorted in her heart. Is it because the prince is unable to do it? He may not be able to give birth in a few years. The queen knew exactly what concubine Yun meant, but what disappointed concubine Yun was that her grandson would be born soon. So let Yin'er work hard, otherwise, the age gap is too big, and he is not as good as his brother. Wouldn't that be more embarrassing? Concubine Yun's face turned green with anger. "I'm sorry to let the queen worry about it. Yin'er will have a teacher to teach him. The queen should still worry about letting the prince give birth to a child earlier, so that the emperor can rest assured." The queen glanced at Yin'er. What's the big deal about bowing at the age of 3? Her two sons could recite poems fluently at the age of 3, but Yin'er, who was not very talented, was praised by concubine Yun. No matter how good the teacher is, it's useless if the student is not smart. As for the prince's offspring, I don't need to worry about it. I can just wait to hold the emperor's grandson. The face of concubine Yun was extremely ugly. It's so hot. Concubine Yun is not hot, but Yinner is still a child and can't stand the scorching Sunday if he gets heat stroke, it's no joke. After the queen finished speaking, she walked away with a dignified and elegant step. Concubine Yun almost got heat stroke because of anger. Didn't she become the queen because of her mother's family? If she wasn't the queen, would you dare to be so ostentatious? Concubine Yun was angry and didn't notice that Yinner's face was flushed and his eyes were abnormal. It wasn't until Yinner fainted that Concubine Yun reacted and her legs were so scared that they went limp. After the imperial physician treated him, he found out that it was heat stroke. When the queen knew about this, she was furious and punished Concubine Yun to be confined to her house for a month. Asterisk. The blood glutinous corn and sweet glutinous corn in the backyard were ripe. Chengzi broke off a few ripe ones and put them in the pot to steam. Shen Shuwei looked at her bulging belly and asked Chengzi to make a loose dress. It was actually a modified version of hanfu, with a high waist. It was both beautiful and cool. The key was that it was not easy to see the pregnant belly. When Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan came, the corn was also cooked. Chengzi cooled it with cold water before serving it on the table. The color of the snow sticky corn is very dark, very close to the color of mulberry purple rice. Concubine Su was shocked when she saw the snow sticky corn. If Shen Shuwei hadn't said it was edible, she would have suspected that someone had poisoned it. It was so black. Shen Shuwei had already picked up the corn and started eating. This is the blood sticky corn. It's really different. Tao Liangyuan took a bite with curiosity. It was indeed a bit sticky and tasted a bit different from the yellow corn. Concubine Su was not polite, she picked up one and started to eat. Shen Liangdi, where did you get such a novel thing? Shen Shuwei said without blushing, I live in the countryside, I have seen a lot of novel things. Concubine Su believed it, because she was born in the capital and was spoiled since childhood. That's right, I have never seen what the countryside looks like. Tao Liangyuan asked while eating corn, I heard that Chang Liangyuan came to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, what is she doing here? Shen Shuwei said, because the queen is here, she came here. Concubine Su had no feelings for Chang Liangyuan, and after the fake pregnancy recipe, she hated her even more, and this time she felt that she had bad intentions. She's not going to do anything again, is she? Tao Liangyuan paused while chewing the corn, and reminded seriously, you'd better be careful, Shen Liangdi. Shen Shuwei bit the corn and said, it's okay, I'm not afraid of her. You are pregnant now. If Chang Liangyuan finds out, she will definitely resort to tricks again. After saying this, Concubine Su stared at Shen Shuwei's belly with some worry. Because it was twins, her belly was much bigger than the day before. Shen Shuwei lowered her head and glanced at her belly, I didn't let her see it when I came last time. Tao Liangyuan said, the women in the palace are scheming against each other. They can do anything to win favor. It's better to be careful. Shen Shuwei nodded and agreed. At this time, Qing Ying walked in with a group of people. Shen Shuwei and the others looked over curiously and saw a lot of things, silk, gold, and silver jewelry. Qing Ying had a kind face, Shen Liangdi, these are all given to you by the queen. Shen Shuwei stepped forward to thank her, thank you, queen. Shen Liangdi, take a good rest, I will go back to report. Qing Ying went back with a faint smile. After the others left, Concubine Su saw these rewards and was surprised, why is the queen so good to you? I remember a few months ago, the queen asked your highness to share the rain and dew equally. The things given by the queen are all good things. Tao Liangyuan touched the silk, this is the shoe brocade offered by Gasu, not the common shoe brocade. This is made of the best emerald silk, and the craftsmanship is complicated. Shen Shuwei didn't understand these. She touched the fabric and it was indeed comfortable. It must be comfortable to wear when made into clothes. Tao Liangyuan is different. You can feel it by touching it. Concubine Su also touched the material curiously and looked at the pattern for a few times. Of course. I heard that there are very few green silkworms, and only 2 pieces of cloth are woven every year, which are used to make clothes for the queen, and the Emperor Tao Lianjiayuan's family is rich, and she was lucky enough to use such shoe brocade. Because money can make the devil work, she can still get some in the face of high prices. Concubine Su was surprised. She looked at Shen Shuwei excitedly. The queen is really good to you. Such a precious shoe brocade was awarded to Shen Liangdi. After admiring the cloth, Tao Liangyuan turned her head and asked in confusion, "Why is the queen so good to you all of a sudden?" Concubine Su also looked over curiously. Shen Shuwei looked at the 2 people in front of her and explained, "Maybe it's because I'm pregnant." Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan said almost in unison, "Does the queen know you're pregnant?" Shen Shuwei nodded vigorously, "Yes, the queen has a sharp eye, and she can't hide it from her." Concubine Su suddenly realized, "No wonder she treats you so well." Tao Liangyuan pondered for a long time and asked, "What I'm curious about is that the queen didn't make it public. What does she want to do?" Shen Shuwei hooked her finger at the 2 of them. Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan came over curiously. Shen Shuwei whispered the queen's thoughts to them. Concubine Su was stunned after hearing it, because someone did something she didn't dare to do for her, and she was excited and looking forward to that famous scene. She asked again, "Does the queen really want to do this?" Shen Shuwei nodded, "Yes." Tao Liangyuan was full of admiration. "Sure enough, the old ones are still the best. Only the queen dares to confront the emperor like this." Concubine Su smiled with curved eyebrows. "The queen is good at dealing with people. If there is a grudge, she can really avenge us." Tao Liangyuan couldn't help laughing. This joke was in the storybook, and she happened to have read the storybook. Shen Shuwei couldn't help laughing too. Concubine Su and Tao Liangyuan learned a lot of jokes. Xiaoxiang Pavilion was very lively during this period. The queen, Concubine Su, and Tao Liangyuan took turns to come. Any delicious food was sent to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Even so, Shen Shuwei was still greedy. She was not greedy for cakes and chicken soup, nor for rice dumplings and corn, but for stir-fried crayfish. It has been a long time since she came to Ancient Times, and it has been a long time since she last ate crayfish. Now she is drooling. "Sister-in-law, sister-in-law." Shen Shuwei's eyes lit up when she heard Xiao Jinyu's voice. She raised her delicate little face and looked out the window. Xiao Jinyu's slender figure was standing outside the window. At first glance, she really looked like Xiao Jinyan. "Sister-in-law, I brought you roast duck." Xiao Jinyu happily raised the oil paper bag in her hand. Shen Shuwei didn't want to eat roast duck now. She held the oil paper bag and looked at Xiao Jinyu expectantly. "I want to eat crayfish. Can you get it for me?" Xiao Jinyu was confused. "Crayfish? What is it?" Shen Shuwei was stunned for a moment. Weren't there crayfish in ancient times? She waved her hand. "Forget it, I'll taste it in my dream." Seeing that Shen Shuwei was not very happy, Xiao Jinyu said, "Sister-in-law, I'm here to tell you that the prince is on the way and will be back in Beijing within 5 days. Shen Shuwei was excited when she heard it. "It's pretty fast." As soon as Xiao Jinyu left, the queen came. Shen Shuwei was gnawing on the roast duck leg and was seen by the queen. In order to prevent the queen from not allowing her to eat, she tore off a duck leg and stuffed it into the queen's hand. "Queen, eat the roast duck leg." The queen was not polite, took the duck leg and took a bite. The taste was okay. Shen Shuwei then continued to gnaw the duck leg with peace of mind. When Chengzi came in, she saw the young lady gnawing the duck leg. She wanted to remind her, but the queen was also gnawing the duck leg, so she didn't dare to speak, subconsciously thinking that the roast duck was brought by the queen. Because every time the queen came, she would bring food to the young lady, almost every day, every day. After the queen gnawed the duck leg, she wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief and started to talk about business. "I brought the imperial doctor here to check your pulse. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Iyun Si. Chapter 337. Every time the queen comes, she will only have Qingying waiting by her side. The purpose is to fear that some palace maids and slaves may be lax and leak the news. Moreover, Shen Shuwei has been locked up in Xiaoxiang Pavilion for a long time, and now she is pregnant, so it is better to be more careful. Shen Shuwei was a doctor himself, so he checked her own pulse when she had nothing to do. Both babies were healthy. She herself is quite healthy. It's just that the queen didn't know that she had medical skills. What if, like last time, the imperial doctor misdiagnoses me? She was afraid that the queen would not believe her and said very seriously, "Queen, my concubine is in good health, so there is no need to check her pulse." The queen looked at her childish little face and couldn't help but smile. "You child, the purpose of diagnosing the pulse is for peace of mind. If there are any problems, they can be solved in time." Shen Chu touched his round belly slightly, "But there is nothing wrong with my concubine, and the baby is fine." The queen looked at Shen Shuwei touching her belly. It felt like touching her grandson, and even she wanted to touch it herself. The grandson she had been looking forward to for so long was so precious. The queen knew that Shen Shuwei was timid, and it must be because of the misdiagnosis by the imperial doctor last time, which caused a shadow in her heart. In addition, I have been wrong due to misunderstanding, and I would also be afraid. The queen continued to comfort, "You are not a doctor, how would you know? Don't worry, this time the imperial doctor is very reliable, and I have carefully selected him." The queen turned and told Qingying, "Let the imperial doctor come in." Here Qingying took the order and exited. Shen Shuwei watched Qingying go out. She didn't know which doctor the queen had brought. It would be great if it was Dr. Wen. After all, he was one of her own. In her eyes, Xiao Jinyan's people are her own and can be trusted. At this time, Qingying came in with the imperial doctor. Shen Shuwei kept staring at the door curiously, and was surprised when she saw Dr. Wen coming in. When she saw Royal Dr. Wen raising his head and showing a warm smile, she smiled knowingly. "I don't know how Dr. Wen let the queen be chosen." The queen ordered, "Dr. Wen, please check Shen Liangdi's pulse." Wei Chen obeys your order. Dr. Wen bowed forward, placed the medicine box in his hand on the chair, took out the diagnosis pad and placed it in front of Shen Shuwei. Shen Shuwei stretched out his wrist to check the pulse in cooperation, and pulled his sleeve to reveal a fair and slender wrist. Dr. Wen took out a square handkerchief and put it on it, and began to diagnose the pulse carefully. The entire process must be done every day, skillfully and naturally. Shen Shuwei calmly picked up the roast duck wings and watched Dr. Wen check his pulse while eating. In fact, the pulse diagnosis techniques of Chinese medicine are similar. Compared to Shen Shuwei, the queen was extremely nervous. She stared at Dr. Wen. The precious grandson she had finally hoped for must be healthy. But when she saw Shen Shuwei taking a bite of roast duck meat from the left and right, she didn't seem worried at all. Maybe eating something can relieve the tension. The queen thought so and took a piece of duck meat. Considering that there were outsiders, she restrained herself and ate the roast duck in small bites. Although it wasn't as satisfying as taking a big bite, it relieved the tension. Dr. Wen looked at the two people eating roast duck in front of him. He was checking their pulse. "Is it really good for you to eat roast duck?" When Dr. Wen took back his hand, the queen couldn't wait to ask, "How is it? Are Shen Liangdi and the baby okay?" Dr. Wen held a square handkerchief in his hand and raised his eyes to look at Shen Shuwei, because he diagnosed that Shen Shuwei was pregnant with twins, and Shen Shuwei must have known about it since he was skilled in medicine. "However, I don't know what the queen means." He was a little confused whether to tell the queen or not. Dr. Wen's signal for help was sent out, but Shen Shuwei was only focused on making money and roasting duck, and did not receive Dr. Wen's questioning look at all. The queen was already nervous and anxious, but Dr. Wen didn't say anything for a long time, which made her extremely anxious. "Mr. Wen, I have a question for you." Shen Chu slightly raised his head and looked at Dr. Wen, with the duck wing still in his mouth. There was cold sweat on Dr. Wen's forehead, but he did not dare to raise his hand to wipe it off. This was the first time he had encountered this situation after practicing medicine for many years. He struggled for a long time and decided to take a gamble. Dr. Wen bowed and saluted, "Back to the queen, Shen Liangdi's health is not serious, and the fetus is stable, but..." The queen's heart immediately rose in her throat. "Just what?" Dr. Wen continued, "Because they are twins, it may be difficult to give birth." Dr. Wen was gasping for breath as he spoke, which frightened the queen, but she was obviously stunned by surprise. "Twins? Doesn't that mean she has 2 grandchildren? 2 grandsons?" The queen was as excited as a galloping horse, and her heart was beating fast. Shen Chu slightly bit the duck meat. How could she forget this? The queen didn't know yet that she was pregnant with twins. Looking at the queen's expression, she must have been shocked. After the surprise, the queen asked again, "Did you make a mistake in your diagnosis?" When Dr. Wen finished speaking, he glanced at Shen Chuwei. Seeing that she had no reaction, he replied with peace of mind, "Back to the queen, Wei Chen did not make a mistake in the diagnosis. They are indeed twins." After the queen was sure, she couldn't wait to look at Shen Chuwei and saw that Shen Liangdi was in a daze. She must have been shocked by the twins. "Shen Liangdi, did you hear that? You have 2 babies in your belly. There has never been an example of twins in the royal family." Shen Chuwei nodded guiltily, "I heard you." The queen carefully comforted her and said, "Don't worry. Although twins are more difficult to give birth to than one child, I will ask the best Mrs. Wen and Dr. Wen to deliver your babies together to ensure the safety of your mother and child." Shen Chu nodded slightly, "I understand." If conditions allowed, she would want to perform an autopsy on herself. The queen couldn't help but stare at Shen Chuwei's belly again. Oh, she suddenly had 2 grandsons, twins. She was so lucky. It seems that the Guanyin in Bema Temple is very effective. Fortunately, she took Shen Chuwei with her to beg for a child, otherwise she might not have been able to go alone. "You are having a good time. If you need anything, just tell me." Shen Chu nodded slightly, "Yeah." The queen then left Xiaoxiang Pavilion with peace of mind. On the way, the queen's waist was straighter than the previous days. The surprises these days surprised her so much. "Dr. Wen, I see that she is quite thin. Do you want to take more supplements?" Dr. Wen replied respectfully, "Empress, Shen Liangdi is in good health now and does not need to take too many supplements. If the fetus is too large, it will also affect the birth." The queen herself had given birth twice, and she knew better that women had to go through a lot of pain during childbirth. Shen Chuwei was so delicate, so she must be afraid of pain. What Dr. Wen said makes sense. A fetus that is too large is not conducive to delivery. Dr. Wen lowered his eyebrows and nodded. The queen also instructed, "Mr. Wen, please remember that this matter must not be made public." Imperial Dr. Wen responded respectfully, "I understand." The queen nodded with satisfaction. The queen was in a good mood and liked everything she saw. Even at night, when the dog emperor came to Fenji Palace, she rarely showed disgust in her eyes. The emperor had been tempered by the queen these days. He came over, took the queen's hand, and asked in a warm voice, "Queen, I heard that you have been running to Xiaoxiang Pavilion in the East Palace recently." The queen did not answer but asked, "Your Majesty, can't I go to the East Palace?" The emperor said earnestly, "It's not that you can't go to the East Palace. Where is Xiaoxiang Pavilion? It's so close to the Leng Palace. You have to think about your own health." The queen snorted coldly, "You also know that Xiaoxiang Pavilion is close to Leng Palace, So you still imprison Shen Shuwei in that place? Something is wrong. Can't the emperor just release Shen Liangdi? The emperor spoke righteously, Empress, the prince has not yet had an heir. This is not a trivial matter. If the prince does not only favor Shen Liangdi, will I lock up Shen Liangdi? It is not that I want to lock her up for the rest of her life, but I am just waiting for the prince to be exposed to both rain and dew. Release the heir. The emperor tried his best to control his temper, but there was nothing he could do. The queen was still pregnant. What if she got angry and got sick? The queen looked at the dog emperor's righteous words. It wasn't until he finished speaking that she said quietly, I am afraid that the emperor will regret it in the future. The emperor snorted coldly, nonsense, how could I regret it? The queen ignored the dog emperor. I won't tell you that Shen Liangdi is pregnant, and they are twins. You will regret it later. She still looks forward to the king of a country and regrets being the same as before. I also look forward to the scene where the dog emperor is anxious to hold his grandson, but cannot. The emperor held the queen in his arms and naturally touched her belly with his hand. He already had 2 sons and he expected this baby to be a daughter. It would be nice to look like a queen. Ling don't go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Listen to me. The queen glanced at the dog emperor's dishonest hand, which was always touching her belly these days. Although, she has gained some weight on her belly. Because I had a lot of food and drinks with Shen Liangdi a few days ago, I went back to Fenji Palace full every time. Over time, the fat on my belly grew. Until the dog emperor put his hand in, the queen frowned. She said quietly, I have a close affinity with Shen Liangdi, and I like to talk to her. By the way, can you please take your hands away? Still addicted to touching? The emperor didn't know what the queen was thinking. He only knew that a child belonging to him and the queen was being conceived here, and most likely it would be a girl. Because the queen was pregnant the previous 2 times and vomited violently, but this time she didn't have such a big reaction. Just a bit more tempered. The emperor thought that a future princess might be conceived here, and he couldn't help but touch it a few more times. The queen was a little upset and agitated. She didn't do anything. She didn't know why she was touching her. It kept her awake for a long time. When the emperor had touched enough, he withdrew his hand and looked at the woman in his arms, wondering why she hadn't told him that she was pregnant. Isn't the anger gone? Just when the queen was about to fall asleep, she heard the dog emperor say again, Ling don't go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion tomorrow. Queen. I went away. If I had the ability, would you lock me up too? Early the next morning, the emperor wanted to get up for an early morning court meeting. Before leaving, he woke up the queen and told her, we will have breakfast together when I come back. After saying that, he left. The queen was left angry at getting up, staring at the top of the bed alone. He is not allowed to sleep at night and is not allowed to sleep well in the morning. The dog emperor really deserves a beating. Before the dog emperor went to court, the queen took several plates of delicious meals to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, planning to have breakfast with Shen Shuwei. P.S. Hurry up, finally write a chapter, and there will be an update at dinner time. The babies are so awesome, they have climbed to 9th place on the monthly vote list. There are still a few days until the end of the month. I don't know if I can keep it up. Keep up the good work, baby, and reach 8th place on the monthly ticket list. The young master worked hard to save the manuscript and add updates for the babies. Good night, babies. Thank you so much to all the babies who voted, give them a big hug. Continue to ask for monthly votes and recommendation votes. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 338. It is better to have breakfast with your daughter-in-law than with the dog emperor. It is pleasant and pleasing to the eyes. The queen walked on the road with her head held high, looking at the sun above her head. The flowers on the roadside were all smiling at her. She was in a very good mood. Shen Shuwei always slept until she woke up naturally, unless she got up too late. Changzi would wake her up for breakfast. It was hot in summer, and Shen Shuwei woke up early during this period. When the queen came, she had already washed and was preparing for breakfast. The queen is now a frequent visitor to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. In the past, Eunuch Ren would howl first and put on the ears of the queen. The queen reminded Eunuch Ren in advance that he didn't need to shout. What if he scared her precious grandson? Eunuch Ren agreed repeatedly. Qingying looked at the queen's rosy face. It is said that people are refreshed when they are happy. It is true. The queen has been in a very good mood these days. Empress, Shen Liangdi is pregnant with the prince's child, so she must be very brave. The queen joked when she heard this. You are right. My grandson will be a dragon among men in the future. No one can compare to him. Shen Shuwei heard the queen's undisguised laughter in the room. She looked down at her belly and felt that she had high hopes for her son before he was born. She was under great pressure. When the queen came in, Shen Shuwei still stood up to greet her. She was the mother of a country, the queen who was second to one person and above 10,000 people. She could be exempted from the formalities, but she could not be ignored. When the queen saw Shen Shuwei, she smiled and took her hand, and sat down at the dining table. I brought some delicious meals. You can try them to see if they suit your appetite. When Shen Shuwei heard the delicious meals, she subconsciously looked at Qingying, because Qingying always carried the food box. I saw Qingying carrying the food box to the dining table, opening the food box, placing the meals on the table one by one, and then retreating to the side to serve. The queen was a picky eater, and she would carefully select the food she ate. No matter how good the food looked or how good it tasted, it was all top-notch. Shen Shuwei was greedy after taking a look. She picked up a piece of food that she couldn't name with her chopsticks, put it into her mouth and took a bite. It was soft, glutinous and sweet. The queen kept looking at Shen Shuwei until she took a bite, and then she couldn't wait to ask, Shen Liangdi, how does it taste? Shen Shuwei raised her head, her beautiful eyebrows curved. Queen, the food is delicious. The queen felt happier than she had eaten it herself. That's good, you eat more. As she said that, she picked up the chopsticks and picked up 2 pieces and put them in the bowl in front of Shen Shuwei. Shen Shuwei looked at the extra food in the bowl, and she didn't hesitate to put it into her mouth. The queen smiled and started eating. Qingying looked at the queen's happy and enthusiastic spirit, and she was afraid that no mother-in-law could take care of her as carefully as the queen. The queen was in a bad mood a few days ago, especially after the emperor came. The queen's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Seeing the queen laughing so happily, Qingying couldn't help but laugh. At this time, Fenji Palace. After the emperor left the court, he hurried to Fenji Palace, thinking that the queen would prepare breakfast for him to eat together. As a result, let alone breakfast, there was no trace of the queen. The emperor paced back and forth and asked in a cold voice, "Where is the queen?" The little palace maid said carefully, replying to the emperor, "The queen went to the Xiaoxiang Pavilion in the East Palace." The emperor's face was a little ugly. "Go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion again." The little palace maid lowered her head and dared not speak. The emperor paced back and forth in anger. The queen was getting less and less concerned about my words. She ran to Xiaoxiang Pavilion every day, but she didn't come to the imperial study to see me. He asked again in a deep voice, "What did the queen do?" "The queen took the meal to Xiaoxiang Pavilion," the little palace maid said softly. The emperor was so angry when he heard it. Other concubines either brought snacks or cooked soup to the imperial study. She, on the other hand, either brought snacks or cooked soup to Xiaoxiang Pavilion. That Shen Liangdi is more important than me? I would rather treat a little Liangdi well than her husband. The emperor became angrier and angrier. He was pregnant, So why didn't he pay any attention? He went to Xiaoxiang Pavilion every day. People who didn't know would think that it was his own daughter who was imprisoned. But later, when the emperor learned that Shen Liangdi had given birth to twins, he almost called her his own daughter and asked me to see my precious grandchildren. The little maids in the bedroom felt the emperor's anger and dared not to say a word. They huddled beside the pillars to reduce their presence as much as possible to avoid being cannon fodder. The emperor paced back and forth. He was so angry that he had to vent. He suddenly stopped and strode out. On the way, the emperor looked at the sun above his head and the flowers on the road, and he was not happy with everything. Eunuch Li knew that the emperor was unhappy, so he coaxed her carefully, "Your Majesty, the queen might be too bored staying in Fenji Palace," so she went to Xiaoxiang Pavilion to chat with Shen Liangdi to relieve her boredom. "Your Majesty, don't be angry." Chatting to relieve boredom, the emperor snorted coldly, "I think the queen is deliberately going against me." How could the queen go against the emperor? The queen has always served the emperor wholeheartedly. Everyone calls the queen virtuous, gentle, and generous, Eunuch Li said with a flattering smile. The emperor glanced at Eunuch Li coldly, "Then tell me, why didn't the queen bring snacks and soup to see me in the imperial study?" Eunuch Li wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. "The queen understands that the emperor is busy with all kinds of affairs and is afraid of disturbing the emperor's work." The emperor snorted. At this time, Shen Shuwei and the queen were full and chatting about family matters. The queen chatted with Shen Shuwei about the first time she met her bride. "This is the first time I'm lucky, a dog." Shen Shu let out a slight sigh, "What the hell?" The queen was so used to scolding the dog emperor in her heart that she almost called him the dog emperor. She immediately corrected her, "The emperor has hired many private cooks to cook for me. The name of the child has been chosen before he is born." The queen talked about a lot of things from that year intermittently. Shen Shuwei listened and found that the emperor was not bad to the queen. In ancient times, it was not easy for emperors, especially, to do this. Qing Ying came in and reported, "Queen, the emperor has come to Xiaoxiang Pavilion." The queen frowned, "Why is he here?" Qing Ying added, looking at the emperor's face, "He seems very unhappy." The queen was stunned for a moment, and suddenly thought that the dog emperor wanted to have breakfast with her. "I will go back first. Your Majesty will be very angry right now." Shen Chu nodded slightly and watched the queen leave. After they left, she lay on the couch and touched her belly, feeling a little full from eating. As soon as the queen walked out of Xiaoxiang Pavilion, she saw the dog emperor, walking towards her with a sullen face, looking very angry. She stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty." The emperor looked at the queen with a rosy face and a faint smile on her face. He was almost angry to death, but she was still smiling. But thinking that she was still pregnant, it was not good to squat down, so he took 2 steps forward and helped her up. His voice was a little deep, "Why don't you listen to me?" The queen raised her beautiful eyes and looked at the dog emperor, "I came here to see Shen Liangdi. It was just to chat and relieve boredom. Does the emperor even want to take care of this?" The emperor's breath was blocked in his chest and felt a little unsmooth. "Have you forgotten what I said before I left?" The queen pretended to be dumbfounded. "What did the emperor say?" The emperor was startled. The queen wiped the sweat from her forehead and said, "Your Majesty, please go back first. It's hot outside." The emperor held his breath and returned to Fenji Palace with the queen, still afraid of overheating her. Asterisk. Shen Shuwei had been scratching his head because he hadn't eaten any stir-fried crayfish these past 2 days, but there seemed to be no crayfish here. She lay on the couch and stared at the succulent, red leaves on the window-sill, which looked like ripe crayfish. Chengzi trotted in, little master, the imperial edict is here." Shen Shuwei's mind was filled with crayfish. Chengzi suddenly said something before she could react, "What imperial edict?" "My young master, I will help you up. Chun 11 helped Shen Shuwei up and knelt on the ground to receive the imperial edict. It was Eunuch Li who read out the imperial edict. With a confused look on her face, Shen Shuwei listened to Eunuch Li read the edict in his high-pitched voice. The general meaning is that I will continue to live in Xiaoxiang Pavilion, but the ban is lifted and I can move around at will. After Shen Shuwei accepted the imperial edict, he thought it was done. As a result, I heard Eunuch Li say again, Shen Liangdi has been going to Fenji Palace to walk around a lot since today. The queen is often feeling unwell. Shen Chu nodded slightly. I understand, thank you, Eunuch Li. After Eunuch Li left, Shen Shuwei looked confused. Why was the ban suddenly lifted? Chengzi asked, isn't it good to lift the ban? I don't go out. Shen Shuwei looked down at his belly. It would be easy to be discovered when he goes out. Chengzi also looked at Shen Shuwei's belly. It was indeed not appropriate to go out. She thought for a moment and said, what I mean when you listen to the imperial edict is that the emperor wants you to visit Fenji Palace more often, not the queen to visit Xiaoxiang Pavilion. The emperor just couldn't see the queen running to Xiaoxiang Pavilion every day, so he released Shen Shuwei's ban. It was better to let Shen Shuwei run every day than to let the queen run every day. It would be very tiring for a pregnant woman. At this time, the queen did not know that the dog emperor had released Shen Shuwei from the ban and asked Shen Shuwei to come to Fenji Palace for a walk. She was still thinking about making clothes for her two precious grandchildren. She made several small belly bands, but she felt they were not enough. She also made several hats. She asked Yasuo Bureau to customize another long life lock, which looked like a dragon and a phoenix. Shen Shuwei looked down at her belly. If she hadn't been thin, her belly would not have been covered by loose clothes. But the emperor's order cannot be violated. If she doesn't go, the emperor may be angry if the queen comes. Get ready, let's go to Fenji Palace. Little master, what if your belly is visible to others? Chengzi was a little worried. She had been in the palace for so long, how many concubines and children had died before they were born? Isn't it because someone is playing tricks behind the scenes? Shen Shuwei shrugged helplessly, but if Eunuch Li doesn't follow the instructions given to him by mouth, I'm afraid everyone in the palace will know about it. Chun 11 was so angry that she said, it's too risky to go out like this. It's better to stay in Xiaoxiang Pavilion all the time. There's no need to go out, and there's not that much risk. If you promise to add more updates to the babies, you will definitely get more updates. I always write and update as I go. I don't have any extra manuscripts. I've been too busy these 2 days, so I delayed updating. Adding more chapters requires manuscripts, so I gave you 2 days. On the 29th, there was a one-time explosion of 12,000. It is currently 9th on the monthly vote list and is about to fall to 10th. Ask for monthly votes and recommendation votes, and work hard to reach 8th place. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 339. Shen Shuwei looked at Chengzi, whose face was red with anger, and comforted her, let's be careful and bring food to the empress. I know Chengzi was very angry. If she could beat the emperor, she would probably do it without hesitation. Chengzi prepared some snacks, all of which she made by herself. With a food expert around, it would be easy for her not to do it. When she was about to go out, Chengzi stared at Shen Shuwei's belly for a while and suggested, my lady, let's wrap the belly with cloth, so it's not easy to be discovered. Chengzi said and went to get the cloth. Shen Shuwei cooperated and lifted up her skirt, watching Chengzi bring a roll of white cloth, which was very thin and breathable. Watching Chengzi wrap up her bulging belly in circles, she took a breath and her belly immediately became smaller. After wrapping the cloth and putting down the skirt, she looked at her belly again, and it was indeed smaller. Changzi then felt relieved to hold the parasol for Shen Shuwei and left Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Shen Shuwei looked at the luxuriously decorated East Palace. She hadn't left the gate of Xiaoxiang Pavilion for almost 5 months. Suddenly, she felt like a bumpkin entering the city. Because Xiaoxiang Pavilion is adjacent to the Cold Palace, no one has lived there for many years and it is in a dilapidated state. Shen Shuwei also looked around like a bumpkin entering the city. Seeing that the lotus seeds in the lotus pond had already aged, she felt sorry. It's a pity that these lotus seeds didn't meet my beloved when they were just ripe. Changzi was so nervous that she heard Shen Shuwei say this. After being together for so long, it was easy to understand what Shen Shuwei meant. She lamented that she didn't eat the lotus seeds when they were ripe. "My lady, it's already this time and you still want to eat?" Shen Shuwei smiled, "I'm just sighing." As soon as she walked out of the East Palace, she met an acquaintance, Chang Liangyuan. Changzi subconsciously blocked Shen Shuwei's belly with the food box in her hand, for fear that Chang Liangyuan would see that the lady was pregnant and then play tricks on the lady. Compared to Changzi's nervousness, Shen Shuwei was much calmer. She led Chang Liangyuan, who was gradually walking in. The more you worry about something, the more likely it is to happen. This is Murphy's Law. Chang Liangyuan was stunned when she saw Shen Shuwei. Wasn't Shen Shuwei under house arrest? Why did she come out? Did she think that she could do whatever she wanted with the support of the queen? Chang Liangyuan went up to her and bowed. "Shen Liangdi, weren't you under house arrest?" Shen Shuwei said lightly, "The emperor's decree has just lifted the ban." Chang Liangyuan originally wanted to take advantage of the topic so that Shen Liangdi would be punished again. Knowing that it was the emperor's decree, she naturally couldn't say anything. "No wonder I didn't hear about it. Where is Shen Liangdi going?" Shen Shuwei's voice was still light. "Go to pay respects to the queen." Chang Liangyuan snorted in her heart when she heard this. She couldn't wait to please her aunt just after the ban was lifted. This face is thicker than the city wall. No wonder she coaxed her aunt to say good things for her everywhere. "I'll go first." Shen Shuwei left 3 words, and then continued to walk towards Fenji Palace with Changzi. Chang Liangyuan stood there, watching Shen Shuwei's back as she left, holding the handkerchief in her hand tightly, relying on a simple and harmless face to win sympathy. Her mind was deep enough. She looked for a while and found that Shen Shuwei's walking posture was a little strange, a little different from Changzi's walking posture. Huaixiang saw that the young master had gone far away and kept staring at Shen Liangdi. "Young master, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing, just a little curious." Chang Liangyuan looked back and glanced twice, then returned to Xinlan Palace. When Shen Shuwei came to Fenji Palace, the queen was choosing fabrics to make clothes for her grandson. The table was full of fabrics, in all colors, all of which were top-quality fabrics, making people dazzled. Shen Shuwei was brought in directly by Qingying without prior notification. She stepped forward and bowed. "Empress." The empress was overwhelmed by the selection, and when she looked up, she saw Shen Shuwei and was so surprised. "Shen Liangdi, why are you here?" She stood up and took her hand and sat down at the table. Shen Shuwei said, "I came just after the ban was lifted today. You are pregnant now, and it is easy for people to see if you come out like this. Don't come next time, I will go to you." Although the empress was happy that Shen Shuwei could come to see her, she always felt unsafe because she was pregnant. She was afraid that someone with ulterior motives would use tricks. Shen Shuwei nodded. "Then I will not come next time, and wait for the empress to come in Xiaoxiang Pavilion." "That's right." The empress smiled and pulled Shen Shuwei, pointing to a table of fabrics, and said, "I want to make some small clothes for the babies in advance, and I am almost overwhelmed by the selection. As a mother, you can also help to choose." Shen Shuwei looked at the fabrics on the table and saw that the dark patterns were probably precious fabrics. The colors were elegant and bright, but they all looked good. She picked out a few nice colored fabrics and said, "This golden yellow one is very skin friendly, and there are also blue and moon white. I think they are all good." The queen looked at the fabrics Shen Shuwei had picked out and liked them very much. She praised them generously. "You have a good eye. I have been looking for a long time but couldn't find the fabric I like." Shen Shuwei touched the fabric and said, "The queen has a very good eye, and the fabrics are very comfortable." The queen smiled and said, "The baby has delicate skin. This shoe brocade is the best. I will make some small shoes later." The queen wanted to make clothes for her baby, and Shen Shuwei was of course very happy. She came over and said, "Does the queen need a blueprint?" The queen looked at Shen Shuwei in confusion. "What blueprint?" Shen Shuwei said, "The blueprint for making clothes." The queen was so surprised when she heard this. "You can also design clothes?" Shen Shu said with a guilty conscience, "I know how to do it, but I am even better at drawing blueprints." "Then draw it and take a look." The queen turned to Qingying and told Qingying, "Go and prepare pen, ink, paper and inkstone." Shen Shuwei hurriedly stopped Grandma Qingying. "No need, the drawing of Xiaoxiang Pavilion is ready. The queen has time to go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion, and I will explain it to you." The queen was not in a hurry when she heard this. "That's fine. When I go, you can show it to me. By the way, have you had any cramps or edema recently?" When the queen was pregnant, her legs would cramp from time to time at night, and the edema was also a bit serious. At that time, the dog emperor was not such a dog, and would massage her legs in the middle of the night. Said she worked hard. Who knew that the dog emperor would become such a dog in the future, which makes people itchy every time? Shen Shu said slightly, "I don't have these symptoms, and my sleep quality is not bad." The queen nodded. "That's good. If we keep doing this, it will be less hard work." Shen Shuwei sat for a while, then he and Chengzi left Fenji Palace. As soon as they came out, Chengzi couldn't help but said, "Little master, why didn't you say that the emperor asked you to come to Fenji Palace? You took such a big risk." Shen Shu said slightly, "Let's listen to the emperor first, and now we can just listen to the queen." Chengzi was stunned for a moment. "Is this okay?" "Why not? We all listened to what the emperor and queen said." Shen Shu smiled slightly. "Chengzi. Okay." The next day, the queen brought Dabu Tang to visit Shen Shuwei, and took Qingying to see the drawings. She planned to make clothes for her precious grandson together with Qingying. Shen Shuwei prepared the drawings early. In fact, children's clothes are much more convenient than adults' clothes. The drawing given by Shen Shuwei is a one-piece suit, because the upper and lower clothes will not fit a newborn baby. If the waistband is too big, it will fall down. If it is too tight, it will make the baby uncomfortable. One-piece clothes are very comfortable for your baby to wear. It was the first time for the queen to see such clothes, and she found it very novel. Shen Liangdi was very thoughtful. One-piece clothes are very suitable for babies. Shen Chu smiled guiltily. She had seen it while shopping in the mall, and she had seen babies wearing one-piece clothes. They were easy to wear and cute, so she kept the drawings. The queen took Qingying to study it again. After figuring out how to sew, she couldn't wait to return to Fenji Palace to make clothes for her precious grandson. After the ban was lifted, it became easier for Qin Xiao to come in. Because Xiao Jinyan had asked before leaving to buy Shen Shuwei some snacks and delicacies outside the palace every now and then. Qin Xiao was almost buying food on his way out of the palace. Because Xiao Jinyan said, "Don't repeat food." Qin Xiao ran all over the streets and alleys just to find delicious food that Shen Shuwei had never eaten. Shen Shuwei, who was still thinking about stir-fried crayfish, saw Qin Xiao coming, and her eyes lit up. "Qin Xiao." Qin Xiao placed the delicacies he bought on the low table in front of Shen Shuwei. "Shen Liangdi, my subordinate bought this on the streets in the south of the city. You can try it." When Shen Shuwei heard that there was food, she couldn't wait to sit up on the couch. Since she had a belly, her movements were inevitably affected. She opened the oil paper bag and saw the clear, white, and plump dragon's beard cake. Qin Xiao, you actually bought the dragon beard cake. She picked up the dragon beard cake, carefully brought it to her mouth and took a bite. It melted in her mouth, with the sweetness of nuts. Shen Liangdi can eat as much as she likes. Qin Xiao put one hand behind his back and walked out. Chengzi made 2 small belly bands in the past 2 days. After washing them, she was about to dry them when she turned around and saw Qin Xiao standing behind her. Qin Xiao came here twice but didn't meet Chengzi. This time he came here specially to find her. Qin Xiao was too tall, so Chengzi had to raise her head to see Qin Xiao's handsome face. What are you doing standing behind me? Qin Xiao's hand took out a package from behind and stuffed it into Chun 11's hand. This is for you. Chengzi lowered his head and looked at the thing Qin Xiao suddenly stuffed in. Because it was wrapped in oil paper, he couldn't see what was inside. Qin Xiao, what is this? When Chengzi raised his head, Qin Xiao's figure was nowhere to be seen. He had already disappeared. This person is so strange. After Chengzi dried her belly band, she opened the oil paper bag and found 2 things inside, a wooden box and an oil paper bag. She opened the wooden box and found a white-green beaded flower inside, which was quite beautiful. She opened another oil paper bag and found that it contained food, but she didn't recognize the specifics. Since Qin Xiao gave it to her, it should be okay to eat it. She put it to her mouth and took a bite. It melted in her mouth, with the sweetness of nuts, and it was delicious. Qin Xiao actually didn't leave. He hid in a place where Chun 11 couldn't see him and secretly watched Chun 11's reaction. The prince longs for me every night after mastering thought reading. Author, Gongzi Yun Si. Chapter 340. Because when facing Chengzi, he didn't know how to react. He was also afraid that when Chengzi refused what he gave him, he wouldn't know how to get her to accept it. That's why after giving the things, he ran away. Anyway, he has martial arts, Chengzi can't catch up with him. Qin Xiao saw Chengzi eating longxia cake. Not only did he eat it, but he also finished it. Girls seem to like eating these sweets. Then he saw Chengzi opening the wooden box, taking out the pearl flowers and looking at them for a long time before putting them back into the box and putting them away. When Qin Xiao saw that Chun 11 had collected the things, he turned around and left. Chengzi raised her head and looked at the door of Xiaoxiang Pavilion, her eyes full of doubts. You didn't say why you gave me something? Why did you run away after you gave it away? After Qin Xiao left Xiaoxiang Pavilion, he went directly to Master Lu. The master has not returned from the military expedition for 4 months. He was originally the master's personal bodyguard, but ended up having to look for food every day. Lu Zheyan has been worrying about something recently, but he has never come to a result. When Qin Xiao came, Mr. Lu was holding his head in one hand and writing and drawing with a pen in the other. Master Lu. Lu Zheyan raised his head and looked at Qin Xiao, and said weakly, Guard Qin, you are here. Qin Xiao asked, why is Mr. Lu so spiritless? Lu Zheyan sighed, don't mention it. As soon as Qin Xiao sat down, Lu Zheyan came over and said, I'll calculate your marriage for free. Lu Zheyan's hobby is considered marriage. Qin Xiao was stunned for a moment, then nodded cheerfully, okay, it's up to you. Lu Zheyan sat up straight and said, stretch out your hand. Qin Xiao generously stretched out his hand in front of Lu Zheyan. Lu Zheyan carefully looked at the lines on Qin Xiao's palms, and then raised his head to look at Qin Xiao's face. Lu Zheyan has known Qin Xiao for many years, and he still understands him quite well. Your marriage? Qin Xiao hurriedly asked, what's wrong? Isn't it worse than Wei Qi? Wei Qi may not have any children in his life, so he probably won't be a bachelor all his life. When Lu Zheyan heard Wei Qi, the corner of his mouth twitched. He shook his head, it's not miserable, it's better than Wei Qi. Qin Xiao was a little anxious, what about that? Lu Zheyan let go of Qin Xiao's hand and said slowly, I married a beautiful girl and raised a fat boy. Qin Xiao suddenly felt a little embarrassed when he heard this, really? Lu Zheyan raised his eyebrows, I am the supervisor of Qin Tian, and you actually question my words. Qin Xiao couldn't help but ask, who is that beautiful girl? Lu Zheyan had a mysterious look on his face, it's far away and yet so close. Asterisk. After Shen Shuwei had had enough sleep and had nothing to do, he took his homemade fishing rod and went to Xiun Pavilion next door to fish. There are already many fish in the fish pond. Almost all the fish I eat recently were caught in the fish pond. Shen Shuwei asked Xiao Gaiza to make a parasol with a wicker chair placed under the umbrella. After swinging the fishing rod, she lay on the wicker chair and waited for the fish to take the bait. In September, the weather is dry and hot. Chengzi fanned Shen Shuwei with a round fan. She looked at the fishing lines in the fish pond, and then at Shen Shuwei who was already asleep. She really didn't understand. What was the meaning of fishing? When Shen Shuwei woke up, he saw Chun 11 and suddenly asked, King, you said that His Highness will arrive in the capital in 5 days. Tomorrow is the 5th day. Why is there no news at all? Chengzi shook her head, I don't know, slave. Should I ask Qin Xiao to come over and ask? Shen Shuwei sat up holding onto the armrest of the wicker chair, call Qin Xiao over. Okay, Chengzi trotted to find Qin Xiao. Inside Xiao's Yang Pavilion, Shen Shuwei sat on the couch and watched Chun 11 and Qin Xiao walk in one after another. She asked, do you know that His Highness will be back tomorrow? Qin Xiao lowered his eyebrows and nodded, I don't know. Shen Shuwei asked doubtfully, aren't you His Highness's personal guard? How come you don't even know his whereabouts? This subordinate is not with the master now, so the master's whereabouts will not be informed to the subordinates. Qin Xiao told the truth. Oh, Shen Shuwei thought Qin Xiao knew Xiao Jinyan's whereabouts, so she said in a relaxed tone, even if we can't arrive in the capital tomorrow, we will definitely be back the day after. Shen Liangdi, don't worry. It's a long way from the military camp to the capital. It takes time to travel, Qin Xiao said. Shen Chu nodded slightly in agreement, that makes sense. At this time, the queen came in with Dr. Wen, and when she saw Qin Xiao, a trace of doubt flashed in her eyes. Qin Xiao is the prince's personal bodyguard, and the queen knows it. Qin Xiao cupped his fists and saluted, Queen. The queen asked coldly, why are you here if you don't follow the prince? Qin Xiao lowered his eyebrows and nodded, back to the queen. The master asked his subordinates to stay in the East Palace. When the queen heard this, she didn't ask any more questions, okay, please step back. Here Qin Xiao exited. The queen looked at Shen Shuwei and her eyes immediately became gentle, I will bring Dr. Wen to give you a safe pulse. Shen Shuwei was shocked. It had only been 4 days since the last time he asked for Ping An's pulse. The queen asked for peace of mind. What could she say? Of course, we actively cooperate. Dr. Wen was a little embarrassed. Why did Shen Liangdi need him to ask for Ping An's pulse? Shen Liangdi's medical skills are much better than him. The queen has a destiny, and Shen Liangdi cooperates. Of course, he must also actively cooperate. As usual, Dr. Wen took out a diagnosis pad and square handkerchief, and with Shen Shuwei's cooperation, he checked the pulse. After it was over, the queen was the first to ask, how is Shen Liangdi? Wen Yuyi nodded and said, to reply to the queen, Shen Liangdi is in good health and the fetus is stable. Shen Liangdi is pregnant, and the queen is more nervous and worried than Shen Liangdi, because she has seen too many pregnant concubines miscarry, so she brought Wen Yuyi to check Shen Liangdi's pulse, so that she can feel at ease. That's good. Compared to the queen's nervousness and worry, Shen Shuwei is much calmer, because she is a doctor and will be the first to find out if there is any problem. After the queen felt relieved, she felt that she hadn't eaten hot pot for a long time, and suddenly suggested, "Shen Liangdi, how about we have hot pot for lunch?" Shen Shuwei was greedy and wanted to eat stir-fried crayfish, but of course she couldn't eat crayfish, and hot pot was not bad. Okay. Chengzi was ashamed, really not afraid that the young lady was a foodie, but afraid that foodies would gather together. The young lady now has the support of the queen, so she can only prepare the ingredients. The hot pot ingredients are all based on appearance, because this is ancient times, there are not so many varieties. At lunch, Shen Shuwei and the queen had a delicious meal. As long as you eat hot pot, you will definitely eat too much. The queen took the Phoenix sedan to leave Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Back to Fenji Palace, the queen touched her belly and felt that she seemed to have gained weight. No wonder the dog emperor had been touching her belly during this period. Although she didn't say anything disgusting, she must have been thinking in her heart, why did she gain weight again? When the emperor came in, this was what he saw. The queen was just lamenting that she had gained weight because she was too full. In the eyes of the emperor, she was pregnant and tired from walking. Because he just learned that the queen was running to Xiaoxiang Pavilion again. But she had never been to the imperial study room once. Queen the emperor walked in. When the queen saw the dog emperor coming, she stood up and saluted to greet him, but was supported by the emperor, no need for the ceremony. Then he helped the queen sit down. Looking at the gentleness and thoughtfulness of the dog emperor, the queen had a brain twitch and it hasn't healed yet. The emperor's voice was somewhat dissatisfied, why did you go to Xiaoxiang Pavilion again? Perhaps the dog emperor was very gentle and considerate at this time, and the queen's voice was gentle, I just went to chat, Your Majesty, don't be nervous. The emperor sighed, feeling very depressed. Seeing a few small clothes on the table, he stood up and came to the table, picked up the turquoise small clothes and looked at them. The style was something he had never seen before, but the clothes were small and cute. The golden and turquoise colors were obviously worn by boys or girls. I didn't expect that the queen would start to prepare small clothes for children. The queen's heart was in her throat, it was over, it was seen by the dog emperor. P.S. Second update. The number of words in each chapter varies from 2,000, 3,000 to 4,000, since it was put on the shelves, it has been 6,000 or 8,000, more votes and more updates. Baby, there is a system bug in chapter 338, which may cause repeated charges. Babies can check the consumption records in my account. If it shows repeated charges, you can find the customer service to return the book coins. Today's chapters have been updated at one time, and there will be no updates during dinner time. Please support me with monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Tickets are really important. If you cannot read a chapter or cannot subscribe, you can clear the cache. If clearing the cache does not work, you can click download all and then clear the cache.